The notification chimed at 2:47 a.m., cutting through the silence of my apartment like a knife through butter. I'd been hunched over my laptop for the past 4 hours, debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code for the inventory management system that was supposed to launch next week. My eyes burned, my back ached, and the last thing I needed was another interruption. But when I saw Tessa's name on the screen, I clicked it anyway. I'm keeping the baby but putting my ex's name on the certificate. It'll be easier. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at those words for a full 30 seconds, reading them over and over until they burned themselves into my retinas. Then I leaned back in my chair and laughed. Actually laughed. Because what else do you do when your girlfriend of 3 years casually drops a nuclear bomb via text message at 3 in the morning? Ah, there it is, I said to my empty apartment. The moment where my life turned into a soap opera written by a drunk Stephen King. The funny thing was, I wasn't even surprised. Not really. There had been signs for weeks. The secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in working late at the photography studio, the way she'd started putting her phone face down whenever I walked into the room. I'd noticed it all with the same methodical attention to detail that made me good at my job as a software engineer. I'd just chosen to ignore it, the way you ignore a weird noise your car makes until the engine finally seizes up on the highway. I opened my laptop and pulled up our shared cloud storage account. Tessa had been using it for months to back up her photography work, and she'd never bothered to change the password. Why would she? Sweet, trusting Aaron wouldn't dream of snooping through his girlfriend's private files. Sweet, trusting Aaron was apparently an idiot. The folder labeled Personal contained everything I needed to know. Screenshots of text conversations with Liam Morrison, her ex-boyfriend, the corporate lawyer with the perfect hair and the BMW. Photos that definitely weren't meant for a professional portfolio. Messages that made my stomach turn and my jaw clench. Miss you too, baby. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Aaron's working late again. Come over. He has no idea. God, this is so hot. I scrolled through weeks of evidence, my anger building with each swipe. But it wasn't the hot, explosive rage you see in movies. It was cold, calculating, methodical. It was the kind of anger that builds systems and solves problems. And I had a very big problem to solve. I picked up my phone and called Sam, my coworker and the closest thing I had to a best friend. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice thick with sleep. Aaron? Dude, it's 3 in the morning. Someone better be gone. Not yet, I said, but I need a favor. You still have that friend who works for the moving company? Yeah, why? I need them here first thing in the morning. And Sam, bring your truck. There was a pause. What happened? Tessa happened. I'll explain later. I hung up and opened a new browser tab, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Lease termination notice, submitted. Utility cancellations, scheduled. Cleaning service, booked for tomorrow afternoon. By the time I was done, I'd methodically dismantled 3 years of shared domesticity in less than an hour. But I wasn't finished, not even close. I pulled up Liam's contact information, conveniently saved in Tessa's phone, which automatically synced to our shared account. Liam Morrison, Esquire. Partner at Morrison, Blake and Associates. Married to Olivia Morrison, née Patterson. 2 kids, ages 7 and 5. Big house in Riverside Heights, the kind of neighborhood where people still left their doors unlocked and their BMWs in the driveway. Perfect. I crafted a simple message and sent it to both Liam and his wife. Congratulations on the pregnancy. Tessa wanted me to forward this to you both. Then I attached a screenshot of her original text to me. The response from Olivia came within minutes. Who is this? What pregnancy? I smiled and typed back. Aaron Mitchell, Tessa's boyfriend. Well, ex-boyfriend as of about an hour ago. Check your husband's phone. I think you'll find it illuminating. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Olivia Morrison. I let it ring. The front door opened just as I was packaging up the last of my evidence. Tessa stumbled in, her hair messed up and her lipstick smeared. She was wearing the black dress I'd bought her for her birthday, the one she'd claimed was too nice for just dinner with the girls. She stopped short when she saw the boxes stacked by the door, the empty spaces where our furniture used to be, the systematic dismantling of our life together. "What's going on?" she gasped, her face going pale. I looked up from my laptop, taking in her disheveled appearance, the guilt written across her features like a confession. "Making things easier, like you said." "Aaron, I can explain." "Can you?" I stood up, closing the laptop with a soft click. "Can you explain why you've been screwing your ex-boyfriend for the past 2 months? Can you explain why you're pregnant with his baby but plan to put my name on the birth certificate? Can you explain why you thought I was stupid enough to never figure it out?" Her face crumpled, tears starting to flow. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." I picked up the last box, the one containing my computer equipment and the few personal items I actually cared about. "The lease is terminated as of tomorrow. Utilities get shut off on Friday. I've forwarded all the relevant information to the appropriate parties." "The appropriate parties? Liam's wife seemed particularly interested in your recent activities?" The color drained completely from her face. "Aaron, you can't." "I can, and I did." I walked toward the door, pausing only to look back at her one last time. "You want it easy, Tessa. Congratulations. You got it." I was halfway down the stairs when my phone rang. Olivia Morrison again. This time, I answered. "You bastard!" she screamed, her voice shrill with rage. "How could you do this to me? To my children?" "Ma'am, I think you're directing your anger at the wrong person," I said calmly, stepping out into the rain. "I'm not the one who's been sleeping with your husband." There was a long pause. Then, in a much quieter voice, "How long?" 2 months that I can prove. Probably longer." Another pause. "Do you have evidence?" I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "Ma'am, I'm a software engineer. I have everything." The next morning dawned gray and drizzling, which seemed appropriate for the complete destruction of my old life. Sam showed up at 8 sharp with his truck, and 2 guys from the moving company, all of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "So," Sam said, hefting a box of my books, "want to tell me what happened?" I handed him a printout of Tessa's text messages. He read them while walking down the stairs, his expression growing darker with each step. "Jesus, Aaron. I'm sorry, man." "Don't be. I'm not." And I wasn't. The cold anger from last night had crystallized into something harder, more focused. I felt like I'd been sleepwalking for months and had finally woken up. Everything was sharp, clear, purposeful. My phone had been buzzing all morning. 17 missed calls from Tessa, 12 from an unknown number that was probably Liam, and 3 from Olivia Morrison. I ignored them all. By noon, we had everything moved into my new apartment across town, a minimalist 1-bedroom place that was the polar opposite of the cluttered, over-decorated space I'd shared with Tessa. Clean lines, empty walls, just the essentials. It felt like a fresh start. "You sure you're okay?" Sam asked as we finished setting up my computer equipment. "Never better." I pulled up my email and started typing. "Actually, I need another favor." "Shoot." "Know anyone who works at Morrison, Blake & Associates?" Sam raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Research purposes." "Aaron, whatever you're planning, I'm not planning anything illegal, just evening the playing field." He studied my face for a long moment, then shrugged. "My cousin Jenny works in their HR department, but I'm not asking her to do anything that could get her fired. I wouldn't dream of it. I just need to know if they have any policies about partners engaging in extramarital affairs with clients or business associates." Sam's eyes lit up with understanding. "Oh, that's good. That's really good. Tessa's been doing some freelance photography work for various law firms around town, including Morrison, Blake & Associates. And if they have a morality clause, then Liam's about to have a very bad day. While Sam made his calls, I opened my laptop and got to work. I'd spent the night thinking about this, planning it out like a complex coding project. Step 1, gather intelligence. Step 2, identify vulnerabilities. Step 3, exploit those vulnerabilities systematically and thoroughly. I started with social media. Tessa had always been careless about her privacy settings, and her Instagram was a goldmine of information. Photos from restaurants I'd never been to, tagged with locations and time stamps that corresponded perfectly with nights she'd claimed to be working late. Pictures with friends I didn't recognize, at parties I'd never heard about. But the real treasure trove was in her tagged photos, pictures other people had posted that included her, like the ones from last weekend, when she'd told me she was doing a wedding shoot in the suburbs. Instead, she was at some upscale bar downtown, laughing and drinking with a group that included a very married-looking Liam Morrison. I downloaded everything, cross-referenced timestamps with her text messages to me, and built a comprehensive timeline of her deception. It was almost impressive in its scope and audacity. Jenny says they definitely have a morality clause, Sam said, hanging up his phone. And get this, Tessa's been paid as an independent contractor for their last 3 corporate events. That makes her a business associate. Perfect. My phone rang. Olivia Morrison again. This time, I decided to answer. Mr. Mitchell? Her voice was calmer now, more controlled. Yes, ma'am. I'd like to meet with you. Today, if possible. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Please. I need to understand what's been happening, and I think I need to see the evidence you mentioned. There was something in her voice, a combination of desperation and steel that reminded me of myself, someone who'd been pushed too far and was finally ready to push back. All right, but not at your house. There's a coffee shop called Grind on 5th Street. Do you know it? I'll find it. 1 hour. I hung up and looked at Sam, who was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. This is going to be epic, he said. No, this is going to be thorough. Grind turned out to be one of those aggressively hip coffee shops with exposed brick walls and baristas who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Olivia Morrison was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a cup like she was trying to absorb its warmth. She was prettier than her Facebook photos suggested, with short blonde hair and intelligent green eyes that were currently rimmed with red. She looked like someone who was used to being in control and was struggling with the sudden absence of it. Mr. Mitchell? Aaron, please. I slid into the seat across from her. And I'm sorry about the circumstances. Are you? Because you seemed pretty eager to blow up my marriage last night. I studied her face, looking for signs of the rage I'd heard over the phone. Instead, I saw calculation, the same cold anger I'd been carrying around since I'd read that text. Your husband blew up your marriage the moment he decided to sleep with my girlfriend. I just provided the documentation. She laughed, a bitter sound that had nothing to do with humor. Documentation? You sound like a lawyer. Software engineer. But we're both in the business of solving problems. And what's your solution to this particular problem? I pulled out a manila envelope and set it on the table between us. Everything I have. Text messages, photos, timestamps, financial records, enough to establish a clear pattern of deception. She stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Why are you giving this to me? Because your husband is a coward who hides behind his wife's money and his law firm's reputation. Because Tessa thinks she's clever enough to manipulate everyone around her without consequences. And because I believe in documentation. Olivia opened the envelope and began reading. I watched her face change as she processed the evidence, the initial shock giving way to anger, then to something harder and more determined. This goes back months, she said finally. At least. Probably longer. The business trip to Chicago in March, the weekend conference in Boston. All of it was lies. She closed the envelope and looked at me directly. What do you want from me? Nothing. This isn't about what I want. It's about what you deserve to know. And what happens now? I leaned back in my chair, considering the question. Now you make informed decisions based on accurate information, and I continue making things easier for everyone involved. What does that mean? It means your husband and my ex-girlfriend wanted to play games. I'm just making sure everyone knows the rules. She was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the gray afternoon. When she spoke again, her voice was steady and cold. Liam's firm is very concerned about their public image. A partner having an affair with a contractor could be problematic. I would imagine so. And Tessa's photography business depends on referrals and reputation. Most small businesses do. She smiled then, and it was sharp enough to cut glass. I think I'm beginning to understand your approach, Aaron. I'm just a software engineer who believes in thorough testing. And what happens when your tests are complete? I stood up, leaving the envelope on the table. Then the system works the way it's supposed to. The next few days passed in a blur of methodical destruction. I went to work, wrote code, attended meetings, and acted like nothing had changed while my carefully planned revenge unfolded in the background. Tessa had been calling and texting constantly, alternating between tearful apologies and angry accusations. I read every message but responded to none of them. Each increasingly desperate communication just confirmed that my plan was working. Aaron, please call me back. We need to talk about this like adults. You can't just disappear on me. I'm pregnant. This is childish. Call me. I know you're getting these messages. Don't be an asshole. Fine, be that way, but you can't avoid me forever. She was right about that last part. I couldn't avoid her forever. But I could choose the time and place for our next encounter, and I could make sure it was on my terms. The opportunity came on Friday night. Sam had convinced me to join him and a few other co-workers at Murphy's, a dive bar near our office that served as the unofficial after-work hangout for the local tech crowd. I wasn't really in the mood for socializing, but I needed to maintain some semblance of normalcy. I was nursing my second beer and half listening to a conversation about the latest JavaScript framework when I saw her walk in. Tessa, dressed in tight jeans and a low-cut top, scanning the crowd with the predatory focus of a heat-seeking missile. She spotted me almost immediately and began making her way through the crowd, her expression shifting from determination to manufactured vulnerability as she got closer. "Aaron," she said, sliding into the empty chair next to me without invitation. "Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you." The conversation at our table faded as everyone turned to stare. Sam shot me a questioning look, but I just shook my head slightly. "Hello, Tessa," I said calmly. "Shouldn't you be at home, resting? Pregnancy can be so exhausting." Her face flushed, but she pressed on. "We need to talk, privately." "I don't think we do, but if you want to talk, we can talk right here. Aaron, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." I turned to face her fully, letting everyone at the table see my expression. "Harder than it has to be? You mean harder than finding out your girlfriend has been cheating on you for months? Harder than discovering she's pregnant with another man's baby but planned to put your name on the birth certificate? That kind of hard?" The silence at our table spread outward like ripples in a pond. Conversations stopped, heads turned, and suddenly we had an audience. Tessa's face went pale. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You picked your team, Tessa. You chose Liam Morrison over me. That's fine. But don't come here pretending you want me back just because your first choice turned out to be a coward who won't leave his wife. It's not like that. It's exactly like that." I stood up, making sure my voice carried to the interested spectators. "Maybe Liam will buy you a new camera as a push present. assuming his wife doesn't take him for everything he's worth in the divorce. The bar erupted in whispers as Tessa fled toward the exit, tears streaming down her face. I sat back down and took a sip of my beer, ignoring the stares and the barely contained excitement of the gossip-hungry crowd. "Dude," said Marcus, one of the junior developers. "That was brutal." "That was honest," I corrected. Sam leaned over and spoke quietly. "You know this is going to be all over town by morning, right?" "I'm counting on it." And it was. By Monday morning, my phone was buzzing with messages from people I hadn't heard from in months, all wanting to know if the rumors were true. I confirmed the basic facts to a few key people and let the gossip network do the rest. The real payoff came Tuesday afternoon when I got a call from an unknown number. "Aaron Mitchell?" "Speaking. This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Portland Police. I need to ask you a few questions about a harassment complaint that's been filed against you." "What kind of harassment complaint?" "Ms. Tessa Walsh claims you've been stalking her, vandalizing her property, and making threatening phone calls." I almost laughed. Almost. "Detective, I haven't spoken to Ms. Walsh since last Tuesday night at Murphy's bar, where she approached me. I have witnesses to that conversation. As for phone calls, I have a complete record of all my communications, and I can assure you I haven't called her once." "What about property damage?" "What property damage?" "Someone spray-painted her car last night, pink baby footprints and the words, 'Congrats, Daddy.'" This time I did laugh. "Detective, I was at work until 10:30 last night, then went home and ordered Chinese food. I have receipts, security camera footage, and a very understanding delivery driver who can confirm my whereabouts." There was a pause. "You seem very prepared for this conversation." "I'm a software engineer. We document everything." "I'd like to see that documentation." "Of course. When would be convenient?" An hour later, I was sitting in an interview room at the police station with Detective Chen, a tired-looking woman in her 40s who seemed more annoyed than suspicious. "This is very thorough," she said, flipping through the printouts I'd brought. "Time-stamped security footage, credit card receipts, delivery confirmation. I believe in covering my bases. And you just happen to have all of this ready?" "Detective, when someone accuses you of stalking and harassment, you want to be able to prove your innocence quickly and definitively." She studied my face for a moment, then closed the folder. "Mr. Mitchell, I have to ask, do you know who might have vandalized Ms. Walsh's car?" "I have no idea, but if I had to guess, I'd say it was someone who doesn't appreciate being lied to." "That's a pretty specific guess." "It's a pretty specific situation." She stood up and handed me back my documentation. "You're free to go, but Mr. Mitchell, stay away from Ms. Walsh. Whatever's going on between you two, don't make it my problem." "I have no intention of going anywhere near her, Detective. I'm done cleaning up other people's messes." I was walking out of the police station when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Nice work with the cops, but this isn't over." L. Liam Morrison, apparently feeling brave enough to make threats via text message. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Detective Chen with a note. "For your files." Then I typed back, "Try being a man, Liam, for once." His response came immediately. "You have no idea who you're messing with." "Actually, I do. You're a coward who hides behind his law degree and his wife's money. You're a cheater who's about to lose everything because you couldn't keep it in your pants. And you're an idiot who just threatened me in writing." My phone stayed silent after that. But I knew he wasn't done. Men like Liam Morrison didn't just slink away when their comfortable lives got disrupted. They fought back, usually in the most cowardly way possible. I was looking forward to it. The attack came on Thursday night, and it was even more pathetic than I'd expected. I was working late at the office trying to finish up the inventory system before the weekend deployment when I heard footsteps in the parking garage. The building was mostly empty by 8 p.m., but there were always a few dedicated workaholics burning the midnight oil. I didn't think anything of it until I reached my car and found Jax Reeves leaning against the driver's side door. Jax was Tessa's fellow photographer and occasional collaborator, a wannabe tough guy with more tattoos than talent and a loyalty to Tessa that bordered on pathetic. He was about my height, but built like someone who spent more time in the gym than behind a camera. "Aaron Mitchell," he said, pushing off from my car. "We need to talk." "No, we don't." I clicked my key fob, but he didn't move away from the door. "Yeah, we do. You need to back off and let Tessa live her life." I studied his face, noting the nervous energy, the way his hands kept clenching and unclenching. Someone had wound him up and pointed him in my direction, but he wasn't really committed to the confrontation. "And if I don't, then we're going to have a problem." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Jax, do you know why Tessa sent you here instead of coming herself?" "Because she's scared of you, man. Because you've been stalking her and harassing her and because she's a coward who uses people like you to fight her battles, just like she used me to pay her rent while she was screwing her ex-boyfriend." His face flushed with anger. "That's not true." "It's completely true. And you know what the really sad part is? She's probably laughing about this right now. Poor, stupid Jax running errands for a woman who wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire." "Shut up. She's been playing you the same way she played me, Jax. The only difference is I was smart enough to figure it out." He took a step toward me, his fists clenched. I said, "Shut up." "Or what? You'll hit me? In a parking garage with security cameras? That's not going to end well for you." He glanced up at the cameras I was pointing to, his confidence wavering. "But you know what?" I continued, pulling out my phone. "I think you should hear something before you make any decisions you'll regret." I opened the audio file I'd prepared for this exact situation and hit play. Tessa's voice filled the garage, crystal clear and unmistakably cruel. God, Jax is so pathetic. He follows me around like a lost puppy thinking he has a chance. It's actually kind of sad. "You should tell him," came Liam's voice. "Are you kidding? He does all my grunt work for free. Why would I mess up a good thing? What if he finds out? What's he going to do? He's a nobody, a wannabe photographer who can't even afford decent equipment. He needs me more than I need him." The color drained from Jax's face as he listened to the woman he'd been defending tear him apart with casual cruelty. "That's not..." She didn't mean... She meant every word. Just like she meant it when she told Liam she was going to pin her pregnancy on me. Just like she meant it when she told me you were just a useful idiot who'd do anything for a smile and a pat on the head. I put my phone away and stepped closer to him. "So here's what's going to happen, Jax. You're going to move away from my car, you're going to walk to your car, and you're going to drive home. And if you ever come near me again, I'll make sure everyone in the photography community knows exactly what Tessa Walsh really thinks of you." He stared at me for a long moment, his face cycling through anger, hurt, and finally, resignation. Then he stepped aside without a word. I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing alone in the parking garage. In my rearview mirror, I could see him pulling out his phone, probably calling Tessa to confront her about what he'd heard. Good. Let her deal with the consequences of her own cruelty for once. The next morning brought news that made my week. Sam burst into my cubicle with a grin that could have powered the entire building. "Dude, you're not going to believe this. Try me. Jenny heard from someone in the legal department that Liam Morrison is being investigated by the State Bar Association." I looked up from my code. "For what?" "Ethics violations. Apparently, someone filed a complaint alleging he was having an inappropriate relationship with a contractor and using his position to influence business decisions." "That's terrible," I said, not bothering to hide my smile. "It gets better. His wife filed for divorce yesterday and she's going for everything. The house, the kids, alimony, the works. And get this, she's representing herself." She's a lawyer too? Better. She's a forensic accountant. She knows where every penny is hidden. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the news. What about Tessa? Oh, that's the best part. Word is she's been blacklisted by half the law firms in town. Nobody wants to risk being associated with the Morrison scandal. Shame. You don't look very surprised by any of this. I'm not. I'm just pleased to see the system working the way it's supposed to. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I found a message from Olivia Morrison. Thank you for the documentation. It's been very useful. Thought you might like to know that Liam's been served with divorce papers and a restraining order. He's also been suspended from his firm pending investigation. Hope your documentation is complete because mine certainly is. Oh. I showed the message to Sam, who whistled low. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Just don't lie to me and we'll be fine. What about Tessa? Think she'll try anything else? I considered the question. Tessa was desperate now, backed into a corner with her support system crumbling around her. Desperate people did stupid things, and I needed to be ready for whatever she might try next. Probably, but I'm not worried. Why not? Because she's fighting the wrong battle. She thinks this is about revenge, but it's not. It's about consequences, and consequences don't care about your feelings. As if summoned by my words, my phone rang. Tessa's name appeared on the screen. I answered on the fourth ring. What do you want? Aaron, please, I need to see you. No. I'm pregnant, I need help. Call Liam. Oh wait, you can't. He's got a restraining order against him. That's not fair. You ruined his life. I documented his choices. There's a difference. Please, Aaron, I'm scared. I don't have anywhere else to turn. You should have thought of that before you decided to blow up both our lives for a few months of excitement. I made a mistake. You made a series of calculated decisions. Now you get to live with the consequences. I'll do anything. Please. There's nothing you can do, Tessa. Nothing you can say. Nothing you can offer. You made your choice, and now you get to live with it. I hung up and turned off my phone. Sam was staring at me with something that might have been respect or might have been fear. Cold, man, ice cold. Accurate, I corrected, and long overdue. But even as I said it, I knew Tessa wasn't done. She was desperate, humiliated, and running out of options. That made her dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with physical threats and everything to do with the kind of chaos that desperate people created when they had nothing left to lose. I was ready for her next move. I was looking forward to it. The final confrontation came on a Friday night, 3 weeks after I'd walked out of our apartment with that last box. I was working late again, a habit I'd developed to avoid going home to my empty apartment and thinking too much about the wreckage of my old life. The security guard called up to my floor at 9:30. Mr. Mitchell? There's a woman down here says she needs to see you, says it's an emergency. What's her name? Tessa Walsh. I almost told him to send her away. Almost. But something in his voice made me pause. How does she look? Honestly, pretty rough. And she's got some kind of envelope she keeps waving around. An envelope. That was interesting, and potentially problematic. Send her up. I spent the next few minutes preparing. I opened my laptop, started recording software, and positioned my phone to capture both audio and video. If Tessa wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I had documentation. She looked terrible when she stepped off the elevator. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping well. But there was something else in her expression, a desperate cunning that put me on high alert. Aaron, she said, walking into my office without invitation. Thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Tessa? She held up a manila envelope, similar to the one I'd given Olivia Morrison. I want to make a deal. I don't make deals with people who lie to me. You'll want to make this one. She opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of photographs. Because if you don't, These pictures are going to be very interesting to your employer. I glanced at the photos without touching them. They appeared to show me in various compromising positions with women who weren't Tessa. The quality was poor, and the faces were partially obscured, but they were convincing enough to cause problems if someone wanted to believe them. Photoshop? I asked. Does it matter? Your boss is a family man, isn't he? Very religious? I don't think he'd appreciate having an employee who cheats on his girlfriend with random women. I leaned back in my chair and studied her face. This was desperation at its purest. The last, pathetic gambit of someone who had nothing left to lose. What do you want? $50,000 and you call off your dogs. My dogs? Olivia Morrison, the State Bar Association, whoever you got to blacklist me from half the photography jobs in town. I didn't get anyone to do anything. I just provided accurate information to people who needed it. Bullshit. This is all you. You've been systematically destroying my life. I've been documenting the consequences of your choices. There's a difference. She slammed her hand on my desk, her composure finally cracking. Don't give me that philosophical bullshit. You want revenge? Fine, you got it. But this ends now, or I make sure you go down with me. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. The office was on the 15th floor, high enough to make the cars look like toys and the people look like ants. You know what, Tessa? You're right. This is about revenge, but not the kind you think. What are you talking about? I turned back to face her, and I could see my expression reflected in her eyes, cold, calculating, utterly without mercy. This is about the revenge of the underestimated. The revenge of the guy who was supposed to be too nice, too trusting, too boring to fight back. The revenge of someone who spent 3 years being taken for granted by a woman who thought she was smarter than everyone around her. Aaron, you want to know the truth? I could have forgiven the cheating. People make mistakes, people get lonely, people do stupid things. But you didn't just cheat on me. You planned to destroy my life to cover up your mistakes. You were going to put another man's baby on my birth certificate and let me pay for it for the next 18 years. That's exactly what you were going to do. And when I found out, you didn't apologize or ask for forgiveness. You tried to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. Then you sent your little attack dog Jax to intimidate me. Then you filed false police reports, and now you're here with fake photographs trying to blackmail me. I walked closer to her, close enough to see the fear starting to creep into her eyes. So yes, Tessa, this is revenge. But it's not my revenge against you. It's reality's revenge against someone who thought she could manipulate and lie and cheat her way through life without consequences. You can't prove those photos are fake. I don't have to, because I never slept with any of those women, because I have alibis for every date stamp on those photos, because I'm a software engineer who documents everything, and you're a liar who's bad at lying. I pulled out my phone and showed her the recording app that had been running since she walked in. But mostly because you just confessed to attempted blackmail while I was recording you. Her face went white. You can't. I can, and I did. Just like I recorded Jax's little intimidation attempt. Just like I documented every lie you told, every manipulation you attempted, every desperate scheme you cooked up to avoid taking responsibility for your own choices. She stared at the phone in my hand like it was a loaded gun. What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want anything from you, Tessa. I want you to disappear from my life completely and permanently. I want you to stop calling, stop texting, stop showing up at my office with pathetic blackmail attempts. I want you to accept that your actions have consequences and that those consequences are not my responsibility to fix. And if I don't, then I send this recording to the police, along with all the other evidence I've been collecting. Then you get to explain to a judge why you thought blackmail was a good solution to your problems. She slumped into the chair across from my desk, the fight finally going out of her. I'm pregnant, Aaron. I don't have anywhere else to go. That's not my problem. It could have been your baby, if things had been different, but they weren't different. And it's not my baby. It's Liam Morrison's baby, and he's the one who should be dealing with the consequences. He won't take my calls. His lawyer sent me a cease and desist letter. Smart man. Smarter than I gave him credit for. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What happens now? Now you leave. You go home, you figure out your life, and you do it without involving me in any way. You have your baby, you raise it, you build whatever life you can build, but you do it somewhere else, with someone else's help. And if I need, you won't, because you're resourceful and manipulative, and you'll find some other sucker to take care of you. You always do. She stood up slowly, gathering her fake photographs and putting them back in the envelope. I loved you, she said quietly. No, you didn't. You loved what I provided. Stability, financial security, someone to clean up your messes and ask for nothing in return. But you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. She walked to the elevator without another word. I watched her go, feeling nothing but relief that this chapter of my life was finally closing. But as the elevator doors closed behind her, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Nice show, but you forgot about me. L. Liam Morrison, still making threats, still trying to be relevant in a story that had moved beyond him. I typed back, "What do you want, Liam? Meet me on the roof. Let's finish this like men." I stared at the message for a moment, then started laughing. Actually laughing, because the whole situation had become so absurd that it had crossed over into dark comedy. "Okay," I typed back, "but you're buying the beer." The roof of my office building was accessible through a maintenance door that was supposed to be locked, but never was. I'd discovered it during my first week at the company, when I'd needed some air and privacy to decompress from a particularly brutal debugging session. Liam was already there when I arrived, standing near the edge with his back to the door. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished somehow. The confident corporate lawyer had been replaced by a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Took you long enough," he said, without turning around. "Traffic was terrible. You know how it is." He turned to face me, and I could see that his expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair was messed up, and his eyes had the hollow look of someone who'd lost everything that mattered to him. "You destroyed my life. I documented your choices. There's a difference. My wife took the kids. My firm suspended me. The Bar Association is investigating me. I might lose my license. Consequences, Liam. Actions have them. This is all your fault." "My fault? I wasn't the one sleeping with your girlfriend. I wasn't the one lying to my wife. I wasn't the one stupid enough to put all of it in writing." He took a step toward me, his hands clenched into fists. "You think you're so smart. You think you won. I don't think I won anything. I think I solved a problem." "What problem?" "The problem of people thinking they can lie and cheat and manipulate without consequences. The problem of people like you and Tessa thinking you're smarter than everyone else. The problem of being underestimated by people who mistake kindness for weakness." The wind picked up, whipping around us and making his tie flap like a flag of surrender. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now you figure out your life. You deal with your divorce. You deal with the Bar Association. You deal with the fact that your choices have consequences, just like everyone else. And if I don't want to just accept that?" I looked at him standing there in his expensive suit, making threats he couldn't back up, and I realized that he was just as pathetic as Tessa. Maybe more so, because at least she had the excuse of desperation. "Then you'll learn the same lesson she did, that the world doesn't owe you anything, and that eventually everyone pays for their choices." He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him weighing his options. He was bigger than me, probably stronger, and we were alone on a rooftop 15 floors above the street. But he was also a coward who'd spent his whole life hiding behind his position and his wife's money. And cowards, when cornered, usually just folded. "This isn't over," he said finally. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." He walked past me toward the door, pausing only to look back once. "You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not seeing through both of you sooner." After he left, I stood alone on the roof for a long time, looking out at the city lights and thinking about everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a different person, trusting, accommodating, willing to overlook problems in the name of keeping the peace. That person was gone, replaced by someone harder and more pragmatic. Someone who understood that documentation was power, that consequences were inevitable, and that sometimes the only way to solve a problem was to let it destroy itself. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia Morrison. "Heard about tonight. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. How did you hear?" "Liam called me, crying. Wanted me to take him back. I told him I'd rather set myself on fire." "Harsh. Accurate. By the way, the divorce should be final next month, and the Bar Association is moving forward with their investigation. Thought you'd like to know. Thanks for the update. Thank you for the documentation. It made everything much easier." I put my phone away and took one last look at the city below. Somewhere out there, Tessa was probably crying into a bottle of wine, wondering how her perfect plan had gone so wrong. Somewhere else, Liam was probably doing the same thing, minus the pregnancy excuse. And here I was, standing on a rooftop at midnight, finally free of both of them. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when I'd first read that text message 3 weeks ago, but it was the ending they'd earned, and the ending I'd documented every step of the way. I walked back to the elevator, already thinking about the code I needed to finish before the weekend deployment. Some problems, once solved, stayed solved. Others required ongoing maintenance and monitoring. But this particular problem was closed, filed away, and marked as resolved.